The 10-year is not cooperating. You know, looking at bank earnings season, as you said, which will kick off on Friday, I think investors and us analysts are most focused on net interest margins and loan growth. And on the net interest margin side, to your point, we've got some pressure coming from the flattening of the yield curve and also deposit betas, which are rising for the banks. Now, the short-term rates have been moving higher, which is a positive, but those two will provide some headwind against net interest margins for most banks. On the loan growth side, we have a strong economic backdrop. Obviously, the TIF is causing a little bit of headwind there. But banks are willing to lend at this point. We just don't have the demand from their customers at this point. Their customers also just got a nice cash infusion with the tax reform. And we also have the banks facing more competition. A lot of these are coming from non-banks providing capital to U.S. businesses, including private equity funds, insurance companies, you have credit unions and all those guys. So when we look at earnings season approaching here, we are neutral or market weight on the sector despite the attractive backdrop. And we think it's a stock picker's market and not a time to be buying a basket of bank stocks at this point in time.
So what does it include? Does it include just the big money center banks or regionals? Or you're right there, you just talked, the list we looked at was just you know, the well-known money center banks. Is that where the action is in your view, or does you know, recent deregulation finally make some of the medium and smaller banks more attractive to you? I mean, they ought to be able to fare a little bit better at this point, no?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are more bullish on the small mid-cap bank stocks than we are the large cap guys. The mid-cap and small cap guys did underperform materially last year, despite benefiting from regulatory reform and tax reform. This year, they have had a bit of a comeback. We think there's more upside to them right now. We're looking at names that have more upside to loan growth, whether it be a niche or hiring veteran bankers from their larger bank peers, banks that can grow loans regardless of the regulatory backdrop and the economic backdrop, as well as banks that can expand their net interest margin. Now, those banks, as I said before, not all banks will experience net interest margin expansion despite rising rates, but we look for those banks that specialize in commercial lending, commercial and industrial lending, that have loans tied to LIBOR or the short end of the curve, and those banks are better positioned. You know, to name a couple, Silicon Valley Bank out of Santa Clara, locally here in Chicago, Wintrust Bank, banks that will benefit here in the near term from the rate hike still.
Have you seen any actual data that shows that these smaller lenders are able to give loans now or feel less encumbered by, you know, their expenses that they're going to need to I don't know, they had to, you know, there are a lot of regulations that they had to be aware of every quarter, and which some people thought caused them to pull in their lending horns. Are they opening up the purse strings now, and you're seeing corporate loan growth, et cetera, and for small businesses?
Sure. Banks are willing to lend. They have plenty of capital. It comes down to demand. And the small, mid-sized guys, their customers don't have such access to the capital markets and are not as attractive to the larger insurance companies, the private equity and venture capital guys. So the bigger banks, their larger customers have more sources available to them. The small mid-cap banks do not have those sources, so they're using the bank balance sheets, and we've seen better loan growth out of the small mid-cap sector than we have with the large cap banks through the H8 data that the Federal Reserve releases every Friday.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.